Today we're looking at summer pruning of fruit trees, and the idea is that you have what are called restricted forms of tree. In this particular case they're oblique cordons, so they're at an angle of roughly 45 degrees, trained against wires, but you can also use a fence or a wall. That restricts the sap flow and tends to make the tree want to do more flowering and hopefully producing fruit. Now, along with that, you also need to do some pruning in the summer. And the reason it's done in the summer is the research workers have found that once these new shoots have produced 23 leaves or more, on a cellular level, you start to get fruit buds and flower buds first, eventually fruit buds forming, so that you get more fruit next year. Now, rather than going along counting 23 leaves or more, you know that this is going to occur on a cellular level between about the middle to the end of July through to the middle to the end of August. So now's the time to do it. You've got to be careful because there are fruit on the tree, and so it's a delicate job, but it's well worth it. It takes time, but you do gain the benefits later on. And what you're looking at is the strong shoots you cut back to about 5 leaves above what is called the basal cluster. Now, this is the basal cluster where you get that group of leaves all there together. This one's been done so that you can see where we're going. This next one I'm going to do, so you've got your basal cluster here, and then 5 leaves, and then you cut upward facing towards a bud. The idea is that that will send up shoots, but also what's going to happen here is, because of what's happening inside the wood, this is where you'll get most of the flowers coming from for next year. And so you're actually directing the fruit to form where you want it, where it's easy to pick, and where you can actually manipulate the plant to do what you want to get lots of apples in a relatively small area. Got another one here. Pruning's the same. Nice strong shoots been taken off, and so all of these shoots are cut back to, you won't be able to see this one, I'm hiding the other side of the tree. There's another one coming off. Now, not all of the shoots are big strong shoots like the ones you've just seen me remove. You quite often get smaller, thinner shoots, such as, I'll just take this one out of the way, and then you can see this small, thinner one. Now, with these, you can either remove them completely, cutting them back to the main stem, or the side shoot in this case, or you can strengthen them. And the way to do it, again, you can probably just see in there, there's your basal cluster, there's next year's flower bud, and then if you cut it back to just one leaf, that makes it strengthen up, and it will still produce a cluster of fruit from these, what are called spurs. And these spurs are the ones that produce lots and lots of flowers on a relatively short stem. Now, I mentioned about the 5 leaves, or just 3 leaves. Not all the plants, not all the shoots actually have the leaves left on, especially lower down. So with something like this thin, weaker shoot, it still needs to be pruned. There are no leaves left, so all you do is you prune to a bud. Take that away. Then the other thing you sometimes get is that, as well as the main shoots that have been pruned, you get these laterals. And these laterals, they can also be fruit bearing, but they need to be taken back. And again, 2 or 3 buds, and that's pretty well it, so that you're getting hopefully a cluster of flower buds and eventually fruit forming in that particular area. So once you've started the process, you work systematically across the tree, taking back these shoots, clearing your way as you go. Sometimes you need to take some out just so that you can see what you're doing, because it can be quite congested. And here you can see the sort of effect that we're after. You've got a lot of the fruit relatively close together, and because quite a bit of it is getting just on the verge of ripeness, depending on the variety, you need to be extra careful with trimming this growth out. And you can see here, there's a fruit cluster. That's where the buds will come from, the flower buds for next year, and hopefully from this part as well. So you're keeping all of the fruit along this main stem. And then as you get further up towards the top, you've got these newer shoots, and again they can be cut back to quite short stubs. I know you can't see from here, but I need to clear the way for what I'm doing next. So we'll get these out of the way, and then we've got some more shoots here up above the fruit. These are shoots that are formed this year, and again the same process. There's your basal cluster, not so many leaves on this one, and then once you get up to somewhere here, again just above a bud, you're not too worried about this soft sappy growth. And we're taken out. And the same with these. You've already got the potential site for fruit buds for next year, so what we'll do, we'll actually take it back to that point. Now once you've worked your way up all of the side shoots, the next thing to do is deal with the leader. That's the main stem that carries on growing. And what you can do with this, as it grows, you keep training it so that it carries on at this oblique angle of around about 45 degrees, and that's why these are called oblique cordons. And then you put a shoot on. It doesn't need to be right at the top, but if you put a shoot on, once that shoot has started to turn woody, it will stay in position. And so you put that clip on and you keep it going up until you get to the top wire. Now this one was planted after the rest, so it isn't quite as tall yet, but once it gets up to this top wire or just above, you cut the top off the shoot, and each year you do the same, so you're actually keeping it so that it only gets a certain size and a certain height, but you're increasing hopefully the number of side shoots that you get down the rest of the stem, because you want those, because they're the bits that will actually produce the fruit, flowers and fruit long term. And you get to the stage, believe it or not, where you actually need to have to start to thin out some of the fruit bearing spurs, otherwise the tree can be overloaded and you can finish up losing quite a bit of fruit. So as you can see, it's quite a transformation. A load of that foliage gone, cut it back to the stuff that we need for the future. Now one of the big drawbacks with pruning at this time of year is that you've got apples on the tree if you're lucky. The thing to bear in mind is that you've got to be careful. If you start to get some fruits dropping off, it means they're probably just about right, so they're ready for picking. But also now and again you get a bit of a nasty shock. You get something like this, it comes off in your hand, or you knock it as you're pruning, and really what's happened there is it's been something like a wasp or a bird had a nibble at it, and then the fungal spores have got in, and now you can see how it's starting to spread. And these are a lot better off out of the way in case they infect any of the other fruit.